Thank you. I give the call to the Honourable Kyle McGinn.
Thank you, President. Today I want to talk about an industrial dispute that's taking place down in the Port of Fremantle involving QUBE Ports. QUBE is a corporation that in 2020 and 2021 financial year had a revenue of $2.1 billion and increased its after-tax profits by 37% to $142 million. In the 2019-2020 financial year, QUBE had a revenue of $1.9 billion, a significant increase on their 2019 earnings of $918 million. Despite QUBE's good fortune during COVID-19, at a time when many businesses closed their doors and workers lost their jobs, they were one of the first companies to put their hand out for a Jobkeeper payment, to the tune of $30.5 million of taxpayers' money, even though their revenue did not collapse, which was the key hurdle of the program. When QUBE were caught taking Jobkeeper, contrary to the program clear guidelines, they repaid $17 million but pocketed the $13.5 million that was left, which they still have not paid back to the federal government. At the same time they were doing this to the Australian taxpayer, they then went and attacked their own employees who were supposed to be beneficiaries of the program, those workers who actually lost hours and wages, and they took money off them and had been paid as Jobkeeper subsidy. Whilst QUBE rorted both the federal government's Jobkeeper scheme and their own employees, they were also busy ensuring that they paid out large executive bonuses and dividends to their shareholders. Amongst the bonuses paid out by QUBE Holdings, the parent company QUBE Ports CEO Maurice James managed to pick up a lazy $2 million. QUBE have refused to pay back $13.5 million of the $30.5 million they rorted out of Jobkeeper program. We know they accessed a program that they had no right to, and in the turn they looked after their executive management with large bonuses. However, how have they treated their stevedoring workforce during the COVID-19 beyond just taking back money paid as Jobkeeper to those most affected by the COVID-19 downturn? Terribly, the answer is QUBE have had a long reputation for cutting corners on safety, but their OH&S shortcuts have been put in the spotlight on a dispute where the workforce in Port of Fremantle are currently out the gate. This isn't a dispute about wages or remuneration, but rather a dispute is about the rights of QUBE workers to have a safe workplace, a right for workers to have a proper fatigue management at their workplace, a right for workers to have a proper work-life balance, and a right for workers to be given reasonable and proper notice for their allocations of work. Not one worker employed by QUBE in Fremantle has a roster. That includes their permanent workforce. Not one worker employed by QUBE in Fremantle Ports is told prior to 4 p.m. on the day before any scheduled work occurs whether they will be working the next day or not. And if they are allocated to work, only then do they find out what shift they will be working, be it a day, evening or night shift, and whether they are required to work an 8-hour or a 12-hour shift. Due to these late allocation, workers cannot plan their personal life. Casual workers are prevented from taking other work before 4 p.m. or they are penalised. Single parents can't plan childcare for the next day until early evening, and workers have no ability to manage work-life balance outside of being at the end of a text from QUBE at 4 p.m. every day. The QUBE Fremantle bosses, and I have to make a special mention of Michael Cranendonk, who is the State Manager of QUBE in Western Australia, has sent employment standards back over 100 years. It is an archaic employment regime that is at odds with the supposed values governing QUBE's management of occupational health and safety. And I quote this directly from their policies. "We have a strong team of people who work together to create an inclusive and collaborative safety culture. This creates the opportunity to identify and mitigate risk, develop and innovate solutions and share our knowledge with the industry. QUBE's allocation and shift patterns are nothing but providing workers with, nowhere near providing workers with a collaborative safety culture. And who have QUBE blamed for their allocation and shift patterns? None other than their clients, which include Wilhelmsen, a global shipping company based in Norway. Shame on you, Wilhelmsen, if you have collaborated with QUBE to destroy the safety and work-life balance of stevedores employed by QUBE in Fremantle. How has the Maritime Union dealt with these issues? They have spent 15 months negotiating with QUBE in an effort to incorporate standards in the EBA, which would improve the safety regime of QUBE's Fremantle operation and work-life balance of QUBE employees. Out of 42 bargaining claims that were nearly all zero-cost claims, QUBE rejected, wait for it, 42 of the claims, including the claim to bring the allocation forward 2 hours to 2 p.m. 2 hours. In light of the refusal of QUBE to agree on a single claim, they took lawful protected action authorised by the Fair Work Commission to support their bargaining position. And what was their action? They needed to be allocated before 2 p.m. on the day before the work was scheduled. So QUBE, true to form, not only refused to allocate work prior to 2 p.m, on the day prior to the scheduled work, they then withdrew the access into the port for 125 of their Fremantle employees. It's an absolute disgrace. It was a lockout in every sense of the word. Again, right from the start, QUBE have sought to shift the blame for the 6-week stoppage of the work in Fremantle onto their workforce and their union. Importantly, QUBE have tried to blame the MUA for lengthy delays to agriculture and mining equipment arriving to those important WA industries. But the facts here will speak very differently to what QUBE is saying. I want to read out a letter that was sent to all port users of Fremantle Port on August 13th by the MUA explaining the reasons for this particular dispute. To whom it may concern, the MUA think clients of QUBE should be concerned about the conduct of QUBE and the manner in which they are flagrantly using their cargo and their business as pawns in a game of upmanship on their own workers. The MUA believe QUBE have misled their clients by informing them they have to send their cargo to Melbourne because the MUA have a 2-week stoppage in place. The MUA have notified QUBE of an extended stoppage and is quite the opposite. The MUA have notified QUBE that they will not work unless QUBE allocate them from 2 o'clock instead of 4, and that they will only work 8-hour shifts and only start work after selected vessels have been alongside for 24 hours since tie-up. QUBE had 2 options in this scenario. Option 1. What QUBE have actually decided to do in acting in their own self-interest. QUBE decided that they would divert their ships with their clients' cargo to Melbourne and have discharged it there and then get it back at some stage in the future, presumably by ship because of the road and rail restrictions currently in play. Option 2, QUBE could have brought the allocations forward by 2 hours. 2 hours. They could have brought their allocations forward, given the labour requirements were all well known in advance. They could have waited 24 hours, then discharged the cargo in Fremantle within 48 to 72 hours of the ship berthing in Fremantle. The cargo would have been delivered on time as always. The MUA say that instead of putting the interests of their clients first, QUBE made the calculated decision to continue to attack their own workforce as they've been doing for years in their neglect of their own workers' health and safety, work-life balance and dignity and respect. The only thing we can say is it appears as though both clients and employees come dead last when QUBE considers what's in its own self-interest. And that was written by WA Branch Secretary Will Tracy of the MUA. The mess which QUBE have found themselves in is self-inflicted. The arrogance of this company in ripping off Jobkeeper is matched by their arrogance towards all West Australians when they blatantly breached the COVID-19 directions that the government to prevent COVID-19 being let loose in the community from foreign crewed vessels. A breach for which we understand QUBE's Fremantle Port Manager Sam Lee and other QUBE supervisors and the company itself are now being considered for criminal prosecution. As they should. How dare they put West Australians at risk by getting on foreign vessels that potentially hold COVID-19 and flouting safety laws. It seems clear that QUBE attacked the community of WA with their recent failures of COVID breaches. It seems clear that QUBE have attacked their own workforce to oppose genuine safety concerns around hours of work fatigue and addressing work-life balance. It seems clear that QUBE attacked their own clients and the WA agriculture and mining community and have used them as pawns in an industrial dispute against their own workforce. The delays in arrivals of agriculture and mining equipment are simply because of the calculated decision by QUBE, not because of the workforce standing up for their safety rights in a legal, protected action. It is an absolute disgrace. I call on QUBE to sort out their bargaining dispute with the Fremantle workforce. I call on Will Helmston to insist on a proper safety standard, not to promote a race to the bottom. It is time for QUBE to accept their corporate responsibilities to their Fremantle workers and to the broader Western Australian community. Thank you.